Tolling is expensive. Now, we don't even have to talk about e-tolls. Wayne has given us some figures on e-tolls. I think the estimate is around about 50% of the cost of all the money collected goes to the collection. That happens in many of the tolls in this country. I think some of our best tolls are running at about 20%. Some of our worst are running at over 100%. There are tolls in this country that have been put up that cost more to collect the money than it does the amount of money they collect in, especially initially. So tolling is an extremely expensive way to collect money. And to me, there is no justification to collect taxes in this way. I don't believe that the Treasury has any other tax which costs as much to collect as it does to collect tolls. So that is to me probably the biggest issue about tolling. It's a very inefficient tax. Then we hear a lot about the user pays principle. Now, to me, the toll roads are not an equitable user pays principle. In fact, what's happening is that although it appears to be user pays, what happens is that the user is paying excessively for using a very small section of the road network, and they're paying nothing at all from a toll point of view for using the rest of the road network. So it's not an equitable user pay system. A user pay system is one in which all users pay equally for the amount of use of the roads that they use. So if all roads were tolled, maybe congestion pricing, if all roads were congestion priced, then you might argue it's a user pay system. But this is very selective. And not only that, but they don't even, the way the tolls are calculated in different areas around, different tolls around the country is different. They're not all calculated as a user pays, they were calculated as what the user will bear, in fact. Then there's an argument that says the fuel tax should not force non-users, for example, people in Cape Town or in Umtata, to pay the Gauteng Freeway Improvement Project. Well, I want to tell you that that is a total myth. The fuel levy is generated, the majority of the fuel levy in this country is generated in Gauteng. The most of the fuel sold in this country is sold in Gauteng. Gauteng's fuel levy subsidizes the roads in the rest of the country, and always will. So it's never going to be a case that Umtata are going to subsidize our roads. I'm talking now as a Gautenger, the taxes and levies paid in Gauteng subsidize those lesser used roads. And so it must be. I don't have a problem with that principle. But I do have a problem with people who say that it's the users in the country areas are paying for Gauteng's roads. That is not a fact. So those are the main points I wanted to make, Mike. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. About 2 months ago, Manglin and I had a lunch in Melrose Arch, and I was crying my heart out because I was under the impression, and I still am, that we are losing the baby with the bathwater. Very little of what my learned colleague said just now touches on traffic management. And my concern the whole time was, what are the effects of a lack of tolling on traffic management? I don't want to go into the reasons what went wrong. I think there are many have been said. One thing I can add to that, as an engineer, we as engineers are not good at communicating. And that is one of the biggest problems, I think, in this whole thing. Let me share with you a few facts. The one thing I want to say is, against the argument, yes, but we only recently heard about this. I heard people saying, we thought it was for the Soccer World Cup. 15 years ago, Gauteng Executive Committee approved tolling of the freeways in principle. This is not coming as a surprise to us. But we maybe did not communicate that. I agree. Let me share with you some facts. Mobility is a prerequisite for economic development and prosperity. More and improved roads attract additional traffic, and in particular the use of private cars. Public transport at the moment cannot be taken seriously. I admit that. Congestion is largely symptomatic of unbalanced modal use. And if left uncontrolled or unmanaged, unfortunately it will choke our arterials. And now my particular topic as a logistician, trucks are and will increasingly be the victims of growing congestion, with spiraling logistics cost of distributing consumer goods in urban areas. We are paying for the cost of congestion with or without tolls. Tolling is well researched and globally accepted as a transport economic instrument. And the interesting thing is it changes behavior. How will it get me out of my car into public transport if it becomes for me too expensive? It's a traffic management tool. So those are the facts. It's my opinion that we have to look at the total transport system. We have to look at Gautrain, public transport and tolling all in one combined system. We cannot isolate that. Fact is, we are paying at the moment for Bombela. You and I are paying for Bombela because there are not passengers, sufficient passengers on the Gautrain, because we're not tolling. But we're also paying for tolling because we at the moment incur interest because we don't pay tolling. And we also pay for congestion. So regardless of where we're going, we are paying for these roads in any case. Why can't we get to user pay? And I would like to respectfully disagree from my friends. User pay is indeed what is happening with tolling, especially in the urban areas. The argument that we need more public transport is indeed correct. But let's toy for public transport, not toy against e-tolling. Let's do the right thing. Let's identify the problem and then address the problem. Solve the problem. Not be against something we don't like, but address the problem. Interesting stories and the benefits of toll, we can talk about that. Malcolm mentioned a lot of detail, which I agree with. But the interesting story is we cannot change peak hour distribution of traffic if we don't toll. Everybody wants to be there in peak hour. If you toll, you can spread it out. A number of things I think we need to understand around traffic management. I want to conclude with a suggestion of the way forward. A few bullets. Maybe we should start with reasonable variable toll tariffs, if not already reasonable. I think we should implement for the majority the rule, and I'm one of them. I have my e-tag already on my car. I am commuting daily from Pretoria to Joburg. Let's implement a new system for the majority. That's the rule. Now we allow for exceptions. What can the exceptions be? Exclude all public transport. Public transport, taxis and buses should not pay the passengers, should not pay toll. And let's include the rental cars, Avis and the like. Let's include them. We don't want them to pay. Because most of the people using rental cars are tourists. They can have it for free. We don't mind. Put them on the roads. Increase ridership on Gautrain with a differential tariff structure. Put more buses and taxis on the toll roads. How do we do that? With high occupancy vehicle lanes. It won't cost us a cent. It's there, the lanes are being demarcated. Let's put more buses in there. But continue with tolling, indeed. We cannot afford any more delays to the implementation of this well-designed traffic management system, not to even mention the complete waste of the world-class portals and other system infrastructure ready for use. Let us do the right thing for the right reason and address the concerns where they belong.
I think I might just pick on John first. I was looking through some newspaper cuttings and I saw two quotations by Jeremy Cronin. Now, you all know who he is. He's the Deputy Minister of Public Works, but he's Communist Party as well, so he has sort of two hats. And Jeremy makes one statement. He says that, and you're a Gautenger, so I have to direct it to you. Jeremy Cronin's statement that spending 20 billion on GFIP was a serious strategic mistake. That's the one quotation. Serious strategic mistake, spending the money. And the second one is, e-tolling in Gauteng is the only viable way to pay for the 20 billion spent on improving the province's freeways. Now, perhaps you can, we can debate that a little bit. Do you?
Okay, let's just start with the 20 billion on GFIP as a mistake. Of course, I don't think. I know Jeremy quite well, by the way. I'm surprised he said that because he is. I have a lot of respect for Jeremy, and he knows the value of infrastructure. He knows the value of development in creating wealth for the country. And the only way that, as I quoted President Kennedy, the only way that we are going to encourage and keep this development going is, in fact, to keep on building our infrastructure. And I can tell you that with my dealings with the province, I had a lot of discussions with the motor industry up in Roslyn and Pretoria, north of Pretoria. They were seriously thinking of moving that entire factory down to the coast because of the congestion and travel problems. Because a lot of the cars are manufacturing also being exported today. A lot of the cars manufacturing don't only get sold in Gauteng, they get sold around the country. And if that infrastructure does deteriorate or does not get improved and it becomes so congested, I promise you they will move out. And they'll move down to where they can get infrastructure. So, and we all know the Gauteng is the economic heartland, the economic hub of South Africa. So I really can't agree with Jeremy on that. But what I can agree if is the sentiment that said that it isn't 20 billion. It's not 20 billion on the infrastructure. It's going to be 50 billion, 70 billion by the time it's finished, with all the additional costs and etc. That may be a mistake. Okay. Then the second point, was about e-tolling.
E-tolling in Gauteng is the only viable way to pay the 20 billion, or 30 billion, or 40 billion, whatever the number is.
I think e-tolling is the only viable way to collect the tolls, and I've said that as a point. But it's certainly not the only viable way. The fuel levy, to me, is the perfect, nothing's perfect. It is the best user-pay system we can get. Every litre of fuel you use, if you use a small car, you take up less road space, you have less energy impacts, you pay a smaller fuel levy because you're using less fuel. If you've got a big truck, you pay more fuel levy. If you travel longer, you pay more fuel levy. So the best direct response we can get to user pays is, in fact, a fuel levy. That's on that point. So I can't agree with that point either. I don't believe that there aren't better ways. In fact, there are much better ways of collecting the money.
Wayne, can I just pick up with you?
Well, look, exactly. I think what we're talking about here, what John's saying, every time you or I fill our tanks up, approximately 100 Rand goes to use of the road. That's your fuel levy. So, and the administration costs of that is zero, literally zero. Yet you want to spend 1.5 billion Rand just to collect the money for GFIP. Now, we could go and build another GFIP with that. And that's the real issue here. So, it's actually a no-brainer. And why? And as I said earlier on, it goes beyond just the collection process. It goes to, does this government want to have a tense, angry relationship with its citizens? Because that's what e-tolling is doing. You will see people marching. You will see blockades of the house. You will see credit ratings being hit heavily by that behavior when your citizens are not on the same side as government. And we're not saying that this is, you just bow down to pressure all the time. I mean, we're not contesting every decision that's made by government. But when a decision of this nature, of this magnitude is made, and it is so wrong because the citizen is not that stupid that they can't realize that this 550, even at cap, is not going to affect them. It's going to affect them immensely. I just want to go back to Malcolm, what you were saying a bit earlier. The 500 people surveyed or polled, there was a poll, 5,000, sorry, there was a poll. I was not referring to that for 1 second. When we asked SANRAL through their processes, they had to put out notifications of this process taking place. The SANRAL Act says, you must do a minimum of adverts in the areas that are affected, and there must be allow people to respond within 30 days. They gave the minimum, not the maximum. Not said, look, let's really consult and give people 2 months, 3 months to come back to us. They gave the bare minimum. They put 6 adverts in the newspapers. That's on tour, not the polling. You can poll anywhere. And your poll, by the way, will come out to where, depending on where you poll. This was about engaging with public. This was engaging with business. Savrala, the biggest private purchaser of vehicles in the country, never was engaged. So when you talk about engaging in a process of this size and this magnitude, what you want is billboards. This road will be told this is how. You want to invite people in. You want to have so much consultation that nobody can point a finger at you when you start putting the gantries up and say what's going on. But what happened in South Africa? What happened here? Literally everyone I know, except for the people who knew behind the scenes, and even 15 years ago when they were talking about it, except for the people on the scene, 99% of people canvassed said, we did not know about this. Yes, they thought it was a World Cup legacy and so forth, but they never knew it was going on. Big business didn't know. So that's not canvassing, that's a failure.